should tell him the truth.
Welcome back, everyone. This will be my non-spoilery Doctor Strange 2 review. There's a whole bunch to talk about, so if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. When the movie does come out in theaters later this week, I'll post a bunch more spoilery videos, the post-credit scenes, full movie breakdown, everything. There's going to be so much we have to talk about, so please don't post spoilers in this video if you do get a chance to see the movie early. This movie will blow you away, but it is not meant to be Avengers Infinity War or Avengers Endgame 2.0. It's not quite as big as some of you might be expecting, even though it seems like it's going to be huge. There are a lot of concepts they introduce in the movie that are really huge, so it is a huge movie, but not in the way that I think a lot of people are expecting it to be, like Avengers Endgame was. Like Avengers Endgame was almost a 3.5-hour movie. This movie clocks in at just a little over 2 hours, so it's actually really short for a traditional Marvel movie. But the basic setup, basic synopsis is that Doctor Strange is still trying to deal with the aftermath of what just happened in Spider-Man No Way Home. I don't feel like it's a spoiler to say that he does not remember Peter Parker. Like, the spell is pretty self-explanatory. He forgets everything about Peter Parker, but still remembers Spider-Man is a character in the MCU. They still know that Spider-Man is a character web-slinging around New York City. They just don't know that it's Peter Parker underneath the mask. But he's still kind of reeling from almost breaking the MCU universe, like they just barely save things at the end there, and also finds himself unsatisfied with the way that Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame went down with the whole blip of it all, the 1 in 14 million chance, in basically sacrificing Iron Man's life in order to save the MCU. You have to remember, Doctor Strange essentially asked Iron Man to take an L for the entire MCU universe, and he did gladly. We meet America Chavez, and he tries to save her from what they at first believed to be an unseen force in the multiverse using witchcraft to try and take her powers to portal between universes, so she winds up being one of the biggest MacGuffins during the movie, like hot potato with America Chavez. While the movie also serves as sort of a Wandavision Season 2 unofficially for Scarlet Witch. This is the closest you'll get to a Wandavision Season 2. Who since the end of Season 1, as implied by that post-credit scene, has been using the Darkhold to learn more about what it means to be the Scarlet Witch, because Agatha Harkness said it was more of a title, like a being of utter chaos magic power. One has been figuring out what it means exactly to be the Scarlet Witch, and following up on her children's cries, Billy and Tommy, in that post-credit scene. The movie also tries to answer that question too, like where did those cries come from? Who are those people crying out? Are they really her children? Is something else going on? Within those basic ideas, the plot is relatively self-contained. Like I said, it's only a little over 2 hours long, so there's only so much you can accomplish in that amount of time, even though the concepts they introduce make it feel like a much bigger movie. Speaking of which, there are a crazy number of cameos using the multiverse that most of you have seen in all the trailers. Most of them won't be spoilers. There are a lot of surprises, though. The movie did a lot to set up the next big Avengers 5 level threat for all the other main characters, as people expected. No spoilers about what that is. I will do separate videos about that later this week though. But it'll be their next big mega crossover movie, and everyone, as you would expect, was at the top of their game. Benedict Cumberbatch, one of the best actors that they've ever gotten in the MCU, so no surprise he kills it no matter what kind of material they give him. He could stand around and read the phone book and still sound like a really badass Doctor Strange. Elizabeth Olsen was also at her peak in the context of the story, as well as her best performance as Scarlet Witch in the MCU so far. All the characters in general are meant to be at the peak of their power, so like it's the most powerful that Wong has ever been, the most powerful that Doctor Strange has ever been in the MCU, the most powerful that Scarlet Witch has ever been in the MCU. Like, take all these characters, everything that's happened to them recently, and just crank the dial up to 11. They do a really good job with anti-hero Wanda during this movie. Like, she's just a little bit bad, but she's still technically one of the good characters. It's like the Parks and Rec meme. Even though they might go off the rails and do something really crazy, we will still love them all the same for it. The events of Doctor Strange 2 sort of serve as the natural escalation of what she was doing during WandaVision and how crazy she got during that. You'll come out of this movie feeling like she stomped all over your face, but you'll love her so much that you just keep asking for more. I won't get into the cameo scenes in too great a detail just because there are still some spoilers out there, but I will talk about the people that they show clearly in the trailer, which is not a spoiler. Not a spoiler if it was in the trailer. So with that in mind, Patrick Stewart was amazing as a version of Professor X. He was at the premiere, clearly, as was Haley Atwell. But he wasn't playing a specific version of the character, it was just meant to be a version you've never seen before, and that was true of a lot of the variants as well. The actors actually did a really good job of playing their own variants, playing multiple versions of the character, and making them feel like distinct, different characters. Same thing with this multiverse Illuminati team with all the different variants of major characters that you've seen versions of before in other different productions or other movies. He was great as a version of Professor X in all the Fox Marvel movies, but Longtime fans will see a lot of Easter eggs for different versions of his character from those X-Men movies and X-Men the Animated Series, and the same is true for all the other members of the Illuminati. If you've been watching a lot of these Marvel productions, the TV shows, all of these different things for the past 20 years, they pay off and combine a whole bunch of Easter eggs in their brief part during the movie. Even though what they do with the characters is really huge, just if you're talking about actual percentage of the movie, they're actually a relatively small part of the film. Like I said though, I think they're trying to use them to set up bigger things in the future. They did show Captain Carter's shield in the trailers and in the poster. Most of you all saw my What If videos, you saw the What If episode, so you have a pretty good idea of what's going on with that character. It's not the version from What If, it's another version from the multiverse that we've never seen before, but you get the idea. It is a live action Haley Atwell playing a version of Captain Carter. She's so fantastic, just like Scarlet Witch, she will wreck you and you will love it. But with them introducing the concept of the X-Men and the other groups that the team members come from that are a little bit more spoilery I won't talk about, like the other places that they come from, the other movies, TV shows, even though they're not a huge part of the movie, they still canonize those characters to the MCU multiverse. So like I said, it's a really big deal for what's coming next. A lot of big teams, quote unquote, that they're getting ready to introduce in brand new movies. During their scenes, there are so many different Easter eggs just flying at you left and right that I will do a separate video for that later this week after the movie actually comes out. Because there is so much stuff that we have to talk about just in certain parts of the movie. I've already done videos about some of the bigger cosmic concepts that they introduced in the film too. They pay off a lot of long-running Easter eggs from other movies, other really big cosmic concepts that they didn't have time for in previous movies like Avengers Infinity War or Avengers Endgame. Without getting too much into that, I'll post some links in the description for the trailer videos that I did for those things, but there are some really cool, really crazy high-level concepts that they've started to get into on Moon Knight with things like the MCU gods that we'll see more of during Thor: Love and Thunder. Like really, really high-level characters that you've only just started to see in the MCU now. Even though most of the hardcore fans will just be talking about all the crazy cameos, and they were awesome, so of course you'd be talking a lot about them, all the crazy Scarlet Witch action is still very much a Doctor Strange movie first and foremost. It's about his journey as a character, and all the other characters are just kind of passing through it on this big adventure that they have. With some of them getting more story than others, like Scarlet Witch being number 2 on the call sheet for obvious reasons. And we cannot talk enough about Sam Raimi's influence on the movie. It was so awesome that they were able to get him to come back to the Marvel movies to do this. The Easter egg circle is now complete because we have Tobey Maguire, also from Spider-Man No Way Home, now in the MCU. Scott Derrickson, the director of the first Doctor Strange movie, had this bold plan to do the first legit MCU horror movie, and Sam Raimi did wind up being the perfect person to step in and complete that thought, because they wanted to find this balance of horror and comedy that he's mostly known for. Like, all you have to do is watch some of his Evil Dead movies, Army of Darkness, any of his other horror movies, and most of them are legit horror movies, but with a lot of comedy in them. If you're a longtime Sam Raimi fan, especially the Evil Dead series, like I said, Army of Darkness, his other horror films, there are a lot of Sam Raimi specific Easter eggs in the movie, from the way he shoots movies, the techniques he uses, his style in general, but there are some MacGuffins, some plot elements that feel like they're ripped directly out of a Sam Raimi movie, like the Darkhold, the Book of the Vishanti, and the Necronomicon.
Klaatu, Veranda.
It was true in Sam Raimi's movies, it's true in the MCU. You find an evil book of magic, you know not to read from it. Just to talk about the music too, because the music was great, Danny Elfman came back to do it. Most of you are super familiar with all of his superhero work, going all the way back to the classic Batman movies. Even though this is a Marvel movie, it did feel very much like Danny Elfman's music. There were even some jokes that Danny Elfman wrote into the music for specific action scenes. Even though I haven't talked a lot about Rachel McAdams' character in any of the trailer videos that I've done, she got a huge upgrade in this movie. Her MCU, Christine Palmer from the first Doctor Strange movie, felt more like his mother than anything else. In this movie, she also plays a variant of Christine Palmer working with the Illuminati in another universe. That version feels like it's way more fun than the MCU version. Even though they do a lot to set up the future of Marvel Phase 4, Marvel Phase 5, like the really big cosmic stuff and big crossovers that are happening, the movie doesn't go overboard Iron Man 2 levels in setting up all that future stuff. Without getting into big spoilers, I'll say there's a little bit that you could tie to what's happening in Thor: Love and Thunder during this, but it's really background at most. Just to address the post-credit scenes, be sure you stay through the entire credits. You never leave a Marvel movie early. Most people have been trained to not leave yet now. There are 2 post-credit scenes like most of the recent Marvel movies. One of them is more plot-based, just teasing what's happening next for all the characters, like this really big crossover that they're heading up to. The other post-credit scene is just meant to be a funny one, just calling back to a joke from earlier in the movie that doesn't really have any bearing on the larger plot. I will do a separate video for the actual post-credit scenes later this week, talking about what they are teasing, like the really big crossover and what's going to be happening next. Once you do have a chance to see the movie, post all your reactions in the comments below, and please do not post any spoilers until later this week after the movie comes out. Some of you also been asking me about doing merch for my channel or how to support the channel. Now YouTube is actually letting you support me by leaving tips on my videos using that special heart underneath each of the actual videos. It's right here. They're supposed to give you guys some special power-ups whenever you do that for each of my videos. So when you try that out, let me know if it's working for you. So if you want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it right now. Thank you to all of you for all of your support. I might do a longer full spoiler review later this week, so look out for that. In my Moon Knight finale video, we'll post Wednesday just like normal. Everyone click here for my Moon Knight episode 6 video. I'll update the link as soon as I post that. And click here for all my Doctor Strange 2 videos. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.